This is the first part of this longer format Q&A session. I asked for a load of questions from people relating to all sorts of different aspects around coaching, training, philosophy, and I got quite a lot of questions back. So on the social media, I'm doing a little shorter answer, a little bit straighter to the point each day. But for the club and the team, I'm going to do a little bit of a deeper analysis. And really, we could pick out a couple of questions and talk about ours. So yeah, I want to go a little bit deeper and relate it back to the NEP style of training, and how we can really use it within our coaching circle, and for you as an athlete, rather than just general kind of answers to the public. So I'm going to do it in a couple of parts because I think the video will be too long. I'm going to answer one of the first 9 questions that I got. And I'm going to start from, so I've tried to link them together as well. So this is kind of about maybe a little bit about mentality here, data, and kind of training approach, and keeping injury free, habits, optimization, social circle, stuff like that. So the first question on this is, what separates runners who improve steadily from those who stagnate? I suppose you have to look at why people are stagnating and what's the most common reasons people stagnate. I would say injury is a big thing, age factor, social circle, environment. So basically you become a product of the people you're around, and if that is a certain level for everyone, then you kind of arrive at that level as well. Knowledge, but knowledge now is different to maybe 10 years ago. Like, there's a lot more information available, so I don't think information is a problem. I think filtering the information is a problem. So then I would say your mentors and coaches and how they can bring about the best, take the information that you need and apply it to your situation. That's more important now than ever. This question could go into lots of different avenues. What are runners who are steadily improving doing those who stagnate aren't? I think they're always thinking about the process. They're not thinking about maybe reaching a certain place or a point. They're very process oriented, so they're very bought into their process. They love the process, they enjoy the process, rather than just reaching milestones. I used to call it the sub-3 curse when people run a sub-3 marathon. It's quite a popular goal in the running community, and you see it so often that people reach that, and then all the motivation goes because they've had this milestone, in place. Whereas the ones that are process oriented just keep improving their process, their system, their habits, and that takes them way beyond these milestones. And there is no limit. There is no limit to performance. So I guess the runners that are unlimited are the ones that don't stagnate. But it's so common, and it's how do you keep improving? Let's say you've been in the sport 5 years, maybe 5 years you've always improved, but then how do you improve for the next 5 years, and then 5 years beyond that? Age becomes a factor, but then we need to change our training, so you need to be adaptable. Are you an adaptable athlete? Do you have a fixed belief system, or do you have an evolving belief system? I always say we don't have beliefs. We see trends, we connect dots, we move with the times. We're modern. We grow with the sport and new information. When new information is put on us, we take that information and we go somewhere else. So are you adaptable to your environment? It's almost like a species. I mean, Charles Darwin here, but how well do you adapt to your environment? Do you refuse to change? If you refuse to change, you literally become extinct. So adaptability, process oriented, your environment around you, that social circle around you, probably the most important things. So that's the first question. Second question, how important is mental resilience compared to physical training, and how can we train our mindset? Really good question. I mean, yeah, the kind of coaching industry is very focused on training plans and training theory and workouts and these perfect sessions and whatever else. But how much time is put into training people's mentality? Now, the biggest thing, really. How do we do it already in NEP? And I think you might be surprised in ways that we actually enforce this, but I like to use the locations to do this a lot. So I take people to harder locations, and maybe where our Sunday long runs are, or Hutton Village, or out in the moors somewhere, really tough places, to bring people outside the comfort zone. But the heart of that question is, how do we get people out of their comfort zone into something unfamiliar, a little bit scary, a little bit out there, but then succeed in that environment, so then they gain some confidence and then take them to the next place. It's about edging people outside the comfort zone, but then giving them the skills, the knowledge, the mentorship around that, the support around that, to actually come out of those outside the comfort zone situations better. So yeah, doing things you don't like doing is the heart of that question. It's getting really windy here, but hopefully my camera's alright. But yeah, mental resilience. We can always be working on mental resilience. The problem is you can't necessarily measure that. It's not like a pace or a result, but how often do we feel like we work on improving our racing mentality? So how do we get more out of ourselves in terms of a race environment? I think the handicap system works really well when we do that in NEP, those sessions. The out and back sessions, or when I handicap the hills, sometimes at the end of a session. It brings out that racing edge a little bit. I think we could do some time trials in training a little bit more to bring that out. Ultimately it's about getting out of your comfort zone and doing stuff you're not used to doing, and being competitive. You can't do that all the time. Running in different environments, different places, mixing it up. I think the worst thing you can do to not train your mental resilience is to do the same thing over and over again. To stay in the same environment, to do the same things, to not test yourself, to not go into the challenge zone. And that's something we can always be evolving, and links back to the first question, but being process orientated within that is really important. Try not to go into these questions for too long, kind of a few minutes each one, but we could go on and on and on really. And some of these questions link together. Third question: how do you know if you're training too hard or not hard enough? Very good question, because I think this. So let's say we're talking about coming to a training session in the club, or a training session you have in your plan. What is the goal of the session? So I think you need to be deliberate with the goal of the session, and that impacts how you treat the session. So if the goal of the session is to recover, then I want you to recover. If the goal of the session is to test the limits of the human heart, then I want you to do that. I want you to go to a place you don't normally go to. If the session is to be a controlled threshold intensity to bring about volume in a certain zone that's going to bring about an adaptation, then I want you to stay in that zone and not go out of that zone, because that's the goal of the session. If I want you to be, if we're doing plyometrics or we're doing something explosive, I want you to be explosive. I don't want you to be slow and sloppy. So knowing the goal of the session is very important, and for the coach to explain that, and for everyone in the group to buy into that as well, because other athletes within the group can impact your session as well. So everyone has to be bought into that. But then how do you know if you're training too hard or not? Effort level is more important than pace. Do not be dictated by pace under any circumstances. Effort is king, and it's something that, how we bring effort in, it's something I'm going to be talking about next couple of days. But let's say we have a watch on. I mean, ideally take that watch off, but if we don't want to take the watch off, we want to record it on Strava, get some kudos from people, and for me to analyse it, I guess. But you could turn off pace, you could turn off heart rate, you could turn off distance. So you only have, it's like a stopwatch. So it's basic. We strip everything back. I know this is one of the questions coming up as well. But stripping the data back sometimes, and then getting in tune with our body, and then trusting our body, so trusting actually what our body's telling us, is the most effective way to train. It's what all the Africans do. It's what all the Moroccans do in the 90s and the 2000s. It's what the runners, we could go back to the Steve Jones style, the Bill Rogers, the Frank Shorters, the Derek Claytons of the world. All these, Paula Radcliffe, all these top people. They train by effort, and they race by effort, and they have no limit. But they listen to what the body's telling them. That's really important.
So not relying on data. And then you could say, well, why not use data to stay in a certain zone? You could, but then if you know what the corresponding effort is for that data range, just stick with your effort, you know? If we could take lactates all the time, then we could keep everyone in the perfect zone, but that's not practical at the sessions yet. But getting people in tune with effort is a big goal of mine over the next couple of months, this summer for everyone, because I know it's the key to success. Doesn't mean we ignore data. We use data to guide our training as well. Next question. How long should it realistically take to see improvement? Okay, so let's get a bit sciencey. The higher the intensity, the more neuromuscular the intensity of the stimulus for a given thing, the quicker the impact. So, for example, plyometrics or some really hard sprints or hill sprints, the 10-second hill sprint stuff we do, those can be really quick in terms of changing neurological fitness from a neural level or kind of muscle tension. They're like a couple of days. Mileage, aerobic volume, easy stuff on the elliptical or easy miles, steady running, they take months to bring about change, but they're longer lasting. The longer it has an impact, I guess the longer it lasts as well, and the more you need to do of it. So let's say you do a session, let's say you do a threshold session, 10 times 3 minutes, LT2 off a minute float or a minute jog or whatever. The gains from that session is probably going to be about 2 weeks, 10 days, 14 days. Hard to quantify because it depends on your recovery from that session, what else you're doing in the week, what stage of training in your development you're at, how much of a stimulus was that actual session for you on your body. If it was below what you normally do, then it's probably not going to have much stimulus. If it's beyond what you normally do, so a little bit of overload, then it's going to have a more powerful stimulus. So what's the overload factor on that session as well? But yeah, so different things will be quicker, you know. Kind of the long run, it's more weeks and months and years, you know. So yeah, and the faster the session, the quicker the impact. But then the less you can do of it, and the less you need of it. And then the different. It's a different stimulus from different sessions, or a different adaptation that's going to bring about something different. So, you know, what a long run does is not what plyometrics do. What a threshold session does is not what a VO2 max interval rep would do. And we need a mix of all these factors, but it depends on your event as well. So we're talking really anything to sum that up from 2 days to maybe 3 weeks for a given session. So then you should be seeing improvement every 3 weeks, I would say. You should see noticeable improvement in you as an individual every 3 weeks. If not, there's maybe a problem with the type of training, your recovery, so how you're adapting to the training, or the stimulus just isn't big enough, you know, or it's too big. Okay, next question. How long should it realistically... Oh, we had that one. What metrics matter most? I'm going to pair this question with the last question that I got, but it's on this 9, because they kind of link together and they kind of oppose each other. What metrics matter most? Pace, heart rate, perceived effort, or race results? In terms of performance, then surely it's race result, because the race result tells the story, right? Or does it tell the story? In terms of the training stuff, pace, heart rate, lactate, power, perceived effort all the time. Always perceived effort. I cannot preach that enough. But race results is what everyone goes on about. Whether it's a distance you've achieved, a pace you've achieved, a position you've achieved, a new thing you've done, a new challenge. It is about the race results, isn't it, ultimately? So that's quite a simple one. And I'm going to pair that with this other question. Do you think the fitness industry and watchers have overcomplicated the process of progression in running, and do you think more people could benefit from taking a much more stripped back approach to the sport? Yes. Yes. It is an industry now, and it wasn't an industry 20 years ago. So people have to make money from the sport now, and all these brands, all these coaching setups, all these watch companies, shoe brands, whatever else, they all want to sell their part of the story, why it makes you a better athlete. But we need to look at history. Now, has training changed that much since, say, the 60s, 70s and 80s? I can tell you now, no. After studying the last 150 years of training extensively throughout my last 16 years of being in the sport, and history is my passion as much as running is. So, and I've read all the training logs of all the greats from the beginning of time, really, since it's been recorded. And yeah, it's a lot different to maybe the 1890s in the early 1900s, but since the 60s and 70s, it's really not changed that much. Small differences in terms of, I'm talking about the style of training, I'm not talking about all the supplements and the shoes and everything, but these are more marginal gains. But in terms of the actual nuts and bolts of training, Arthur Lydiard, Bill Bauman, Percy Carruti, Jack Daniels, Renat Canova, well, even when he was younger, he's been around a long time. These guys pretty much had it worked out, and we're just tampering with things now, really, and applying it to the modern world. I think that's the difference, I guess, is we're applying it to the modern lifestyle, and lifestyles have changed so much. So, if your goal is to become a better runner, and to stay in the sport, one, you've got to enjoy it. So, just having all the stats and all the pace measurements and all this other stuff make you enjoy the sport more. And if it adds more stress, then I think you should strip it back. Does comparing things all the time between what you've done maybe and what others have done all the time, we can talk about Strava, we can talk about social media and that, is that helping you reach your potential? I would say in a lot of cases no, definitely not. I think it adds way more stress, way more comparison with all the data as well. But would taking away a watch, let's say taking away a watch itself in training, would that impact the session negatively? I think no. I think people will be surprised, and we've done this in phases within the club where we've had no watch sessions, or we've had even a whole block with some people where they've actually not used a watch, and we've just done intervals by time, just like stopwatch format. And these people have raced really well, and I'm talking about racing without a watch here as well. Maybe not in the marathon, I think that's a bit harder, but yeah, I think we can link this back to the mental side, but I think there's a mental barrier knowing what pace we should be at sometimes. And if we're doing a session, say we've improved, if our threshold pace is normally 7:00 a minute mile, and we're going to do a threshold session, what happens if you've improved and actually it's really like 6:50s, but you're staying at this pace now because you think it's that? But why not just trust your effort in what your body's telling you? Or if you've had a really stressful day, there's more benefit to slowing down and listening to your body, because that's where the adaptation is going to happen. It's not going to happen at a certain pace. Adaptation is not linked to pace. Adaptation is linked to an applied effort to bring about a stimulus. So pace and adaptation, they don't really have much connection. They have a correlation sometimes, but not a connection. Effort has a direct connection. So yes, I think we should strip back. I think we should use data, but not rely on it. And I think we should have a good balance in there. And I think balance in most things is very important to longevity, enjoying it, and top performance. Okay, let's go on to another question. Okay, this links back, I guess, as well. Couple more questions on this, but to round off part one. It's quite cold out here, so I think I'm shivering a little bit. Are runners too obsessed with optimization at the expense of enjoyment? I see this a lot. And I've probably lost, it's not me I guess, but the team have lost some runners in recent years because they've almost put too much pressure on optimising their week with everything else in their life at the actual expense of enjoying it. So that's really windy. The wind keeps going up and down. So yes, I think
it's finding a balance, and I think it really depends on what you've got going on in your life. I think sometimes people try and do the same week all the time, as in they put the same pressure and focus on each week all the way through the year, and it's why I want people to have blocks and time of rest, time of focus on the running, time of focus away from the running, and to not be locked in every week of the year. I think it's really important to have balance in your life, again balance to other things as well, from a block periodization season point of view, to have points of real focus in the year where running is a priority and you're optimizing everything in your life to get that, and then points in the year where running isn't as much of a priority. Have some rest, have some family time, maybe focus on work or career or project at work, and to have that balance throughout the year really. Holidays, some rest. But then in terms of a week as well, so like at a micro level, or even a day, it's like you need some other things outside of optimizing running. And going all in on just running, especially when you're not being paid to do it, I think causes a lot of frustration and almost perfectionism and over-analysis that really grips hold of people, and it just sucks the life out of it. And it honestly does not make you a better athlete. So yeah, I think people do lose themselves with optimizing everything, especially with the culture online as well, with trying to optimize your whole day down from when you wake up to when you go to sleep. It's like, yeah, but are you actually enjoying the day? Are you actually getting the most out of life? And running's to support your life, not take it all away, So you've got to get a really good balance with that and everything else you got going on. So that's really important. A lot of these are kind of social questions, aren't they? Okay, here's one. So how do you balance pushing limits with staying injury free? Good question. I think you have to find where your red line is right now, and you've got to stay 5% below that line. That line changes all the way through. It might go up, it might go down, depending on what stage of your development you're at. But it's always coming away from a session thinking, we talked about this, and we're starting to integrate this quite well because I'm seeing it as a trend, but always coming away from a session thinking we could do a little bit more. That's really important. Always finishing the week thinking we could do a little bit more, could have went a bit harder. So there's always somewhere to go. When there's always somewhere to go, the body it's a bit overloaded with applied stress, but it can actually heal and recover ready for the next week. If you always get to the end of the week thinking, that's all out, I've not got much more left, I'm aching here, I'm tired here, mentally I'm drained, I think you're heading down a bad path, and it's quite draining, and injury risk, a lot of injury risk and illness risk there, and I see that. You might not break on the first week, but yeah, like a couple of months in, you're probably going to break with that. So there's a difference between gradual overload for long-term development and crazy overload for short-term results. And I never ever pursue short-term results with the team, because I want people to develop for years and have a good long connection with the sport that is healthy. And having gone through quite a major injury myself at the moment, I mean, even the last couple of weeks I'm down, can I actually get back to that top performance? It's been a really rough half a year, or even longer than that really, because I've had the problem for a couple of years. It's developed, and I'm a preacher of long-term development more than anyone. And yes, I was guilty of probably pushing the boundaries a little bit too hard when I was younger, because I didn't know how to control that motivation and that passion. So yeah, it's always better to come away from the week, a session, with a little bit more to give. Because the races want to be 110%. You absolutely kill the races, but training, you leave with 5% to go. And with that mentality, you always know there's an extra gear on race day. So you have an edge on people. And that's important as well. You don't want the races to be the same as training. You want the races to be another level, another gear. Because that's like the best training session of the block. Your A race is the best training session of the block. You don't want the best session to be one of your training sessions leading into it. So yeah, and I think staying injury free, utilising cross training, utilising good recovery methods. There's more ways to get to the top now, or the top of your potential, wherever that is, than
just running. We need strength and conditioning, we need cross training, we need supplementary stuff in there as well as running. And it's finding that best balance for you with how much time you got to commit, your life, what you enjoy, what you can recover from, and what you can make productive as well. I'm going to answer maybe one more question. Okay, here's a good one. So, is that the last question? Yeah, I think that'll be a good one to end on. So, it's about social stuff. So, how do social circles influence performance more than we realise? Yeah. So, a lot of my job is about building networks around the Northeast in people who can train and work together. And I've done that over the years, and people have came and gone and stuff, depending on what stage of life they're at for their running. I think it's everything. I really think it's everything. And you having other people who are on a similar journey to you, and where you want to go, they want to go. You want to make these habits, they want to make these habits. They want to train this hard, you want to train this hard. That's everything, and I cannot stress that enough. And that's why NEP's such a good network as well, of people who want to go a little bit above and beyond the normal runner, because they want to discover where their potential lies. But you can have very bad social circles, and getting out of them is sometimes difficult. You might not feel like you have another choice. And I've been in bad social circles over the years, and trying to correct that and get out of that and create new ones is hard, but it's needed if you want to get the most out of your job, your running, any sport, whatever it is. So finding other people who want to pursue your vision as well is really important, and breaking people out of those social circles. A lot of people come to me quite broken from previous environments, so changing people's habits and beliefs and mindset and almost network is like a big thing that we do. And the training can almost be like crap, but if the environment's really good, it really doesn't matter what the training is, because to a certain level, because it just brings about good performance and the right positive environment where people want to go somewhere. So environment's everything. And where you train, like the locations you train at, we can switch the locations around. We could go to an industrial estate and do a session versus going out in the woods on a lovely sunny night versus the industrial estate on a rainy, cold night. I mean, obviously we're going to feel more ambitious, more positive in the better environment. So where you train has a big impact as well, and that's why we try to utilise all these different places to make runners enjoy what they're doing more. I think that's so important. So yeah, I've answered a lot of questions there. It's getting quite cold out here, and I'm going to do 3 parts, or maybe even 4 parts to this, because there's that many questions. There's some nutrition questions that I haven't explored. There's some like returning from injury focused questions, which I think are really good as well from people, in like specific cross training questions as well. So, and setting goals, I really like that question, and we'll talk about that in the next one. But yeah, there's part 1 of our Q&A session to wrap up maybe some thoughts from people over the last couple of months. Okay.